I had no idea the British press was so bigoted.
This one's wife. Their lives are comedy, and it's not changed. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Some of you may have noticed that occasionally I post some of my older videos. There are two reasons why I do this. Firstly, there are some people who didn't see them first time around and would benefit from that information. They don't delve into my extensive archives, but operate on a hand-to-mouth basis, i.e. they digest what is put in front of them, rather than going back and looking for stuff. Indeed, it's often the case that people will ask me, HG, have you done a video on this? Or will you do a video on this? And in fact, I'd done one only 2 days ago, which demonstrates that often people do miss material. Therefore, giving existing excellent material a second airing is advantageous. Not only do I do this in relation to many other subjects, but I also do this in relation to this one's wife. And this segues into the second reason, that it provides you with an opportunity to not only be reminded of the way that she has behaved in the past, but it allows you to compare the similarity between how she has behaved in the past and how she behaves now. And it also enables you to look at the similarities in that behaviour and see how the evidence continues to mount up as to what she is. Indeed, there may be certain things that she'd done that you'd forgotten about, and it serves as a useful reminder, another piece of the jigsaw that fits together. To that end, I'm going to take you back to an article that was written in December 2022, so nearly 18 months ago, which proves a very salient point with regard to this one's wife and Harry, that in essence, they try and portray their life as a tragedy, but in actual fact, to everybody else, is quite comedic, and it was then, and it has remained so. Camilla Long writes in The Times, "Psychiatrists will tell you that certain people cannot help but destroy joy in their lives. However much you try to introduce rationality or calm, they still run towards the stupidest things they can do. The global wellness dork and peerless self-saboteur Prince Harry strikes me as one such person. Watching the latest instalment of Harry and This One's Wife, I couldn't help but marvel at the unpredictable, self-harming behaviour of this sweaty, terminally dissatisfied princeling. Here we are 18 months later. Has anything changed in that regard? Does he remain terminally dissatisfied? He absolutely does. Chaotic, unknowable, resentful, and definitely angry, those things still haven't changed, he is telly gold. If, for example, you want an idea of his laser decision-making skills, at one point he tells us he left the country because of comms teams. Again and again he described how he upended his life on some furious whim. One house was so small, another needed to be abandoned because the borders are closing. He justified his path to chaos as a path to happiness, or, as This One's Wife might say, centeredness. But the couple have now had 5 houses in 5 years. If they really put their back into it, their lucky children might match Marilyn Monroe's miserable tally of 43 houses before she died. Awful, cynical people ricochet in and out of their lives like pinballs. The ridiculous widow twanky figure of Tyler Perry, for example, who lent the couple his giant turd-like mansion overlooking celebrities, and Californian scrub. Another amazing friend who we've never met, trilled Harry. Now indebted to Perry, they tell us they offered up their daughter as payment. Would he be Lilibet's godfather? It was a laugh-out-loud moment. How are they going to explain that to her when she grows up? Traded for a private jet flight and golden bogs. Has anything changed with regard to the exploitation of Lilibet? No. Long continues by stating, I wasn't going to watch any more of this convulsing royal panto, having been drained mostly in laughter by Volume 1, but my God, I can't stop. It's a weird new micro-outrage, decision a minute. How can these two not very bright, generally tasteless, grasping show ponies create such Moorish awful television. It's the comedy of the year. The second volume continues their great love story, which as far as I can see means sitting huffily next to each other at matching his and hers top laptop stations while obsessively scrolling the sidebar of shame and receiving texts from Beyoncé. At one point, a text comes in from William, and there is practically a panto thunderclap. We already know from Tina Brown's book on the royals that William monitors the couple with Jafar-like intensity, but I had no idea he would make such a hilarious villain screaming at Harry over Megxit while their father says things that simply weren't true. Charles, by the way, is the magic mirror in our performance, camp, conniving, silky, dissembling, but not really there. And who are the dwarfs? Well, that's obvious. Every last talking head dredged up from some palace coffin to fawn over our poor fleeing princess and the principal boy, this one's wife. We learn from one of them, for example, that the Duchess always signs off text messages, "Love wins." Another, some fashion designer, tells us it has to be flawless, it has to be perfect, over footage of the wedding dress, which looked as if it didn't even fit. Of course, has anything improved in the intervening period of time? No. Her clothing still doesn't fit. Her clothing still looks awful. Witness, of course, what went on in Nigeria, for example. No one seems able to state reality. This is indeed a fairy tale. Friends will turn earnestly to the camera and tell us that words can kill you. Can they? If you mean the words of this one's wife's flowery, sickening wedding speech, maybe they can. But in general, the whole point is, they cannot. Maybe the couple should read some real fairy tales to see how difficult life can get. Some of you may be wondering how long this performance can go on. My answer is forever. And here we are, 18 months later. And has the comedic value continued in the interim? Of course it has. We had the near-catastrophic car chase in May of last year. The Indiana appearance, where this one's wife, expecting to fill arenas, couldn't even fill a Midwest hotel chain's banqueting suite. We've had the jam scam and the complete failure of American Riviera Orchard retirement homes. We've had the hilarity and the scorn of Spare, the nonsense spouted in Bell Endgame, the Legends of Aviation Award, which is hilarious, the recent Katy Perry lie, the debacle surrounding archetypes, the Spotify cessation. There's been the Nigerian cringe, the mic grab at the Costner event, repeated NFIs, the Oscars, the Met Gala, Golden Globes, the Grosvenor wedding. We've had her appearing as a tube of toothpaste in New York City, spouting her usual fridge magnet platitudes. There's been the Invictus takeovers at Dusseldorf with the stolen valour behaviour, and at Whistler with the handshake interruption and clothes show. Jamaica, turning up inappropriately dressed, wearing a ball gown when everybody else was dressed in a more casual fashion. Again and again and again. The narcissism of this one's wife and its disconnect with the world around her has resulted in the comedic continuing, along with Harry, of course, still being dragged along by his pink pods. Accordingly, as Long asked, how long might it go on for? And she answered forever. That has proven to be the case. She continued by writing, we are now merely a couple of legs into a vast non-stop regional tour of this tottering 3-star extravaganza. If there is one lesson to be learnt, it is that not having any real content these days just doesn't matter. If, for example, these two gong-twanging, mountain-hiking, award-accepting Major League pillocks can spin out one of the most turgid legal cases in history, this one's wife's copyright action against the Mail on Sunday, into more than 60 minutes, they can probably dramatise anything, because everything about their lives is inherently funny. You can't say Harry lacks personality. Every single last detail becomes strangely involving. The non-stop Claridge's lift music. You wonder, do they think this is classy? The Mercy flight out of Canada avec dogs. The constant keening sense they are being attacked by a serious unseen psychological danger, paranoia of this one's wife, when really what they're afraid of is spinning headlines that state this one's wife broke the royal shoe protocol at Bondi Beach, or someone saying her hat looks like a bit like the poo emoji. If you want to know who the wicked stepmother is in this pantomime, well, it's us. Just what do they do all day, you want to scream, beyond making stage zucchini muffins with Archie for the cameras and bitching about your brother, as this one's wife calls William darkly. Smearing. She may have complained that the royal family was an orchestrated reality show, but what does she call this? Harry is such an absolute beta, he has even been faithfully trained to interview her on camera at any crucial moment. He, of course, is the loser, the man whose life will now never be happy, and that's because he's been ensnared by a narcissist. How can it be? When he is living with someone who describes a minor currying glitch as horrendous. His life changes continually. It is exhausting and damaging. Thus, this was Camilla Long writing some 18 months ago about the comedic value of the lives of this one's wife and Harry as portrayed in their docuseries on Netflix. Think about what was written there, the comments that were made, and now, 18 months later, has anything changed? No. They are still figures of ridicule. We had South Park taking them apart. Family Guy joined in. Chris Rock did. Repeated individuals have lampooned and ridiculed them, from the well-known to the less well-known on social media. Time and time again, their lives become portrayed as ridiculous and hilarious. The lack of awareness, the inability to read the room, the self-absorption, they've all continued. And so it's useful to look back on what was said some 18 months ago and see how what was valid then remains valid. That demonstrates to you the narcissist doesn't change. There might be some short-term alteration in behaviours, but ultimately the narcissist never changes. The behaviours are pathologically entrenched. They are fixed. They can't be altered. Anybody that tells you that a narcissist can be cured or fixed or changed either doesn't know what they're talking about or is quite simply lying. The fact is that she has not altered in her behaviours. We've seen that throughout all of the time that she's risen to prominence, and it'll just continue, as I've explained previously. And Harry continues to get dragged along with it, his own failings similarly exposed. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.